Well, I was working as the co-chair and general manager of the Web 2.0 brands for TechWeb in a partnership with O'Reilly Media. And I had been doing that for several years when we decided that there was really something to this idea that the principles and values of the web were going to come to government, primarily driven by Obama being elected, but generally sort of the sense that there was this interest in bringing these ideas into the government, and that rather than trying to address that through the Web 2.0 events, which really drew professional web developers and designers and entrepreneurs, we thought, let's do a separate event. So we coined this phrase Gov 2.0. I don't know if we actually coined it, but we just put an event series around it. And it was just an inspiring and educational and fun time to learn about all the stuff that was going on, and not just how government works, but how government's changing. So I got to work with Tim O'Reilly on that event. And when he started working on it, he started going around and interviewing a ton of people about what was going on and what changes were possible and where we as a media organization could really help. And one of the things he said pretty early on in the meeting is, I want something to come out of this that's not just a conference, that's something actionable. And I had that in the back of my mind for a long time as we worked on this stuff. And when Andrew Greenhill, who's the chief of staff for the mayor of Tucson, kept asking me how to bring in a Web 2.0 team to solve a problem he had that was really a Web 2.0 problem. It was, reporting and triage and feedback to citizens around potholes. I started thinking about how we could solve that. And when we brought up Teach for America, which is something he would have been involved with, I thought, here's a match, here's a problem, and here's a model for solving it. And that was the genesis of Code for America. So Code for America is essentially a way for the talent in the web design and development industry who would really like to have an impact on their country, really try to help make the country better, to get in there and solve problems. Right now you've got a lot of great talent wanting to help in a lot of different ways, and I've been very inspired and encouraged by this sort of citizen apps movement, like Apps for Democracy, Apps for America, Big Apps, where you can see that people in this field who really know their stuff and can develop great websites and great web applications are wanting to help. The idea, though, is that can we get those people inside City Hall? Can we have them solving real problems that will have a bottom line impact on the budget in your city? And the model that we're using for that is essentially Teach for America. Back in the 90s, teaching wasn't that cool of a profession to go into if you were, a top student at, say, an Ivy League university. But Teach for America said this is a competitive process. We're going to support you, and we're going to give you the ability to make a real impact really quickly. So we want to do the same thing, not necessarily with top grads from Ivy League schools, but from the smartest minds in the web industry. By making it competitive, by giving it high status, we're saying to them, you can come into Code for America, you can give a year to develop a Web 2.0 program for a city government, and you can have a real impact. So right now we're working with the cities to decide what those programs will be. So right now we're working with cities to identify which ones would be a good fit for the program. We are opening our application by January 1st, hopefully a little earlier, and asking cities to just sort of a first round, intent to participate by February 1st. And then we'll have a couple of rounds of working with them, and ultimately we're going to choose 5 by about April. And when we choose those 5 cities, we'll be working with them on what the project is that they'd like to do, and hope that those projects fit our criteria of being doable by a team of 5 really smart developers in about 10 months, but driving transparency and efficiency in the city, having a real business case associated with them, and being scalable to other cities once they're done. We're open sourcing everything. We really want to see these projects picked up by other cities once they're done. So our current work is primarily with cities. We'll be recruiting developers starting, in April and through the summer. And the whole project kicks off with the first cycle of 5 cities and 25 developers in January 2011. If you look at the world even 10 years ago compared to the world today, it's a dramatically different world. And a lot of that is because of the social media and the web apps that have come out, and the changing of the world that's happened outside of government now desperately needs to happen inside of government. Government needs to start working more, and I mean in all the good ways, not all the bad ways, but more like Yelp and Facebook. And the only people who really know how to do that is this generation of web developers. But the efficiencies that we see, the transparency that's driven, the way that people can participate, these things are necessary in a modern government system. Our government isn't set up in a lot of ways to do that, and I think when a lot of developers look at government, they're scared that they wouldn't be able to get anything done, that procedures and policies would make it more of a bureaucratic job than an exciting, dynamic job where they could really change the way that citizens live in the society they live in. I think that that's changing in a lot of different ways, and Code for America is just part of that. But developers really need to answer the call. This is probably the biggest call of our generation. We need to come reinvent government the way we've reinvented society. Let it catch up. Let it be a partner with us. I think it's a couple things. I think first and foremost, developers have to believe that what they do will have an impact. It's not worth it if it's just going to be a waste of time. If their app isn't going to get used, if their app isn't going to change the way people live in their city. I think the other big inspiration is just the amount of data that's out there right now that's generated not only by businesses and consumers, but now that's generated by and published by the cities. This is just an amazing opportunity that we've never had before. We're living in a moment in time when the transparency initiatives are driving data sets that are just like it's a playground, right? There's just what can you do with all of that data? How can you make something useful out of it? And how can you create avenues for data to flow in useful directions? So again, not just out to the development community who then publishes it in great ways to citizens, but also back to the government to be used in more efficient, more useful ways. I think that we're at the moment of a pretty big shift, and the values that we've sort of seen emerge and come to the surface in the Web 2.0 community are starting to fan out into other parts of life. And if you think about what Tim O'Reilly talks about, our relationship with government, up until now it's been this vending machine model where you put your taxes in and you get back services, and if you don't like what you're getting out and you don't think it's a good value for what you're putting in, you go and shake the vending machine. But we're at a moment when we can envision government instead of a vending machine as a platform and a way that you can participate. So instead of spending your energy going and rattling that thing and saying, I want something different, please listen to my voice among the millions of other voices that are shouting at you to get a piece of your attention, we can go and say, this is a platform that's set up for me to be able to do what I want to do, to effect the change that I want to see, and that's not really been possible before. So the societal value is making every citizen a citizen in the true sense of the word, not just one who is essentially buying services from a government, but is participating in the solution to the problem. And that may be abstract when you talk about, okay, a visualization of crime data, but it's citizens that put that crime data out there. It's citizens who make decisions about where they live and where they work based on that data. There's a million ways that we can now plug into people's passions and people's ability to help and fix the country, not just by crying out for more attention in one place or another, but by actually doing it. And I think when we start seeing more relationships with the data sets and with the applications that are built with the data sets, we can change our city. I mean, think about what they're doing with bike racks in San Francisco. The bike racks are now going to go where people really want them instead of where planners are guessing they might be used. Any small way in which we can improve the livability of our city, especially in San Francisco when it comes to transportation. If applications are making it much easier for you to find your way on public transit or know when the bus is coming, these small things add up, and what they do is they make it possible for us to live in the city in the way that we want to live.